Hello, everyone. Welcome to Eye Opener Society's Thursday night sermon. If you're going to be joining us here tonight, we welcome you. And anybody who's listening to the recorded version of this, please remember every Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are live across both Facebook and YouTube as well. So if you'd like to join us live, you always can. Just jump on here and we can even take your questions too as well. So we look forward to having you here. I look forward to this little sermon because I wanted to talk about how life comes full circle. And I don't want to bore you too much with these here details, but this here little backstory is very important as I move forward through this conversation. For the past week or two, I had been thinking about my older podcast back when I first started. And I was doing this with my stepdaughter. Her and I, we had an app. And this goes back, I think it was about 3 years ago. The app is no longer around. But this is why I've been thinking about it and how life comes full circle. And we need to sit and just wait sometimes for the beauty to start emerging again. This app was called Wisdom. Again, it's no longer around, but when it first came out, this was kind of one of those surprise apps that basically changed my life. I said, this is probably one of the most well thought out apps I've ever had. Now, the app was for podcasters, it had a built in audience. You could set up your profile, upload any shows you have, but there was something great about it. One, the creators allowed people that were handpicked by them. What they were doing, they were listening to podcasts. They selected a bunch of us and they gave us basically I think it was called the Wisdom something. It had some sort of name to it, but we were able to immediately start broadcasting our podcasts over this app while everybody else that was joining had to just wait. I think for certain points, you had to do certain things, either or. This app, when you signed on to it and as soon as you logged in, it was set up so the very first thing that happened, you were immediately put into the audience for a random podcast that was going on based upon whoever was going live at the time. You would just end up in a random podcast. You had the option to, keep jumping to another one or just, go in there and hear what it is you wanted to hear. But this concept of being pushed right into a podcast was amazing to me, only because I didn't have to worry about, what do I want to listen to today or be forced to listen to only what I enjoy as far as a genre. This opened my eyes up to different types of genres. I was listening to everything that I never thought I would listen to. Depending on who the podcaster was, that was the difference. If they were really good, I would sit and listen regardless of if it was a different type of politic, if it was a different type of religion, if it was a different race. And we were immersed in this entire little world. And there was no negative feedback ever. You could sit, you could listen to somebody. And the best thing with it, it was always set up so that if you were live, you could choose 5, 10, or 15 minutes for guests to come on. And it was on a timer. And once the timer stopped, like let's say for 5 minutes, it would bump that person off. So you could have people come in and instead of doing comments, they could spend about 5 or 10 minutes giving feedback or talking about the topic, whatever the case may be. And it was great. I never heard any type of negativity. People were always open-minded. People gave positive feedback. People gave good educational feedback as well. And it was just great because it was kind of like this podcaster community that worked so very well across all different types of genres, no matter what people were talking about. And you were sharing ideas, and sometimes you would start following, your favorite podcasters. You could start collaborating with them. You go on their podcasts at times. It was just so beautifully worked out. Sometimes even the creators of the app would join in on one of your podcasts and they would give positive feedback. It was just a wonderful, wonderful, perfect little app. And it gave you the encouragement to keep moving forward and broadcasting little shows and talking about things you never thought you'd talk about. I love the idea. It was a concept of society or concept of a community where we weren't really worried about what it is someone was talking about. It was how well they were talking about it. And if it struck a nerve or a chord that made you sit and listen to it, give feedback, understand, and learn from each other. That's why it was called wisdom. We were using the app for about a year. The creators then got together all of the original people that they had chosen and they said, listen, we were thinking about making some changes. So we would like you to sit in on our meeting. Again, this was wonderful. We were able to sit and actually work with the creators. They started what was known as circles. And what they said is like, we're going to start doing circles. So rather than when you joined in or as soon as you logged in, you didn't get tossed right into a podcast. You get to pick the circles you want to be part of, whatever the genre is, religion, true crime, whatever that case may be. You picked and choose these circles, and you could select all of them. You could select none of them, one of them, or you could create your own circle as well. That was their idea. So, what you would have to do is then jump from circle to circle. And now this kind of isolated the community. And you had to now seek out what it is you're looking for. And again, you went back to the way every other podcast platform was, where people are only going to listen to what it is they want to listen to. Sounds like a good concept, but when you're trying to be knowledgeable or wisdom, you want to listen to those hard subject matters you never thought you would listen to better yourself, to educate yourself. You were not now able to reach out across, all genres at any given moment. It started to fall the wayside and especially started to fall back because it just didn't work anymore. I didn't like the feel of it. So the developers tried to come up with something else. And now when you open up the app, you were forced to see people's profiles that were just created or have been created for a while. And you had to swipe left to swipe right if you liked them or didn't like them. And then those people that you did like will go into, whatever genre they were in, whatever circle they were in. And then after a while, we noticed that, well, it became just like podcasts for Tinder. And people were literally making like romantic or sexual profiles to meet other people that way. And then all of a sudden, I lost my ability to broadcast my own show. They took away that wisdom star because they said, well, now everything's new and now you have to start all over again. So goodbye, app, goodbye, wisdom, done. And over the last few years, I sat without it, no big deal. But now, here is the lesson to this entire talk. It's funny how life comes full circle. Thinking about the way that app had worked and how I loved the way that app worked, Lizzie comes to me and describes the way she sees Eye Opener Society as a community, as a ministry, how we all work together regardless of religion, race, color, creed, whatever the case may be. Her thought, her idea, which I fell so in love with, and I was wondering why, reminds me exactly of that wisdom app and the way it used to be. And once we get things together, this is just a little preemptive a thing for anybody that is with us or is going to be with us for a while. Lizzie is in the works creating a Discord channel where we're basically doing what the Wisdom app done. Just it's not for podcasters, it's for everybody. And when I put that together, when I started remembering about this old Wisdom app and how much I loved it, coming full circle. Lizzie's creating something that's going to be very, very similar. The way we can all work together as a community, we just fall in regardless. Doctors, lawyers, janitors, technicians, whatever the case may be, whatever your skill, you can belong to this society on this Discord app. You could teach others. You could talk. It's not just going to be Lizzie or myself, giving our sermons, giving our speeches, giving our teachings. This is for everybody to give their skills, to hone their skills by working with others and just talking. Because back then, when I had that wisdom app, I remember there was one guy who was with the original podcasters, and he was an IT tech for businesses. Nothing that I had any interest in. There was nothing. But when I listened to his shows, he was so very passionate about it. He knew a lot of stuff. But what he would do is he'd let other businesses know, I'm here not to sell you anything, but to teach you stuff. Do you have a business and this is not going correctly? Here's what this IT can do. I can help you. Join me, talk to me, and I could give you pointers and tricks, or I could show you vendors and who you can hook up with and how your system should work. This is the exact concept that Lizzie has. And it's the concept that I'm really looking forward to as well. Life comes full circle. So this was my story. Think back in your own life now. What is it that you had at one point that no longer exists? Did it come back? Can it come back? Just sit with that and understand at some point with life, some of those good things that are long gone can come back and recreate in a whole different way that you would never expect. So, my name is Gary Dean. If you give us a few moments, I'm going to have the wonderful Cosmic Fairy Princess jump on here. And in the meantime, we'll see you late. I will see you later. And let's turn things over to Lizzie. Lizzie, just give me 1 second. I'll let you know when we're good. Lizzie, you are live, buddy. Go for it.
All right, thank you very much. That was a lovely sermon today, and I have never heard of that app, and I think I would have probably lost a couple of years exploring that because that would be perfect. It's essentially what I'm doing on TikTok is just connecting to find people for their different perspectives because you can expand quite a bit from looking and talking to people who you agree with, but you can expand even more when you talk to people who you don't agree with. And it's funny that you were talking about that because I didn't think, because I knew your topic today, but I didn't think that I was gonna I was gonna match. But what I've been exploring the last couple of days is best represented in languages. When two people who speak different languages, even if they know each other's language, there's going to be mistranslations that happen sometimes. And of course, some things can be broken down to the fact that there's not a perfect translated word for everything from one language to another. English, I think, has one of like the most words in the modern languages, and so there's a lot of words that have to be translated differently when we talk to somebody in, like, say, Italian. But along with that, even for words that we agree on, like bridge, for example, something that a lot of the languages do is they attach kind of a masculine or feminine note to the word. And I'm not going to try to repeat the word because I'm really terrible at that. But take bridge, for example. In French, bridge is a masculine term. So if you were to talk to a French person, they might describe a bridge as being strong and big. But in German, bridge is a feminine term, which means that if you were to ask a German person to describe a bridge, they might say something different like beautiful, enchanting. You had them both draw this bridge, they would probably draw the same bridge or something very, very similar. But if you were to ask them both to write a poem about this bridge, you might have a vastly, vastly different meaning come out of this. And so different apps, like what you were talking about there, um, or even just giving space to disagree with the people around you. It gives you the opportunity to see a little bit more than what you would have. Because if somebody came to you and said, "Do you know what a bridge is?" You'd be like, "Yeah, I know what a bridge is." You know what I mean? Like it would sound so crazy to ask that question. But if you get into all the poetry and that, there's so many different meanings and different metaphors that can come out of that. And the thing is it sounds so simple, like languages and the definitions of things. But truthfully, how you define something completely changes your experience of these things. Something else that I've been looking at, I tried to find where it originated, but it seems like it's just something that's been explored throughout a bunch of different cultures throughout time. But Carl Jung got in on it, and so that's where you can find a lot of the information is from his perspective of it. But it was I think he called it like the four stages of alchemizing or something like that. Basically, stage one is dissolution. It's where you're breaking down, there's chaos, you're exposing what's underneath. Stage two is purification, where you're doing like healing, then clarity starts emerging and things like that. Stage three would be embodying the wisdom, where insight turns into like lived understanding. And then the fourth stage would be like it being completed, right? And so this is something that has been studied and related back to amongst many, many cultures. And so something that I do is I then would perceive it as that there is some truth to it for me to explore. And so when I get in and look at it and I can relate myself to different stages, different experiences to different things, I get to paint a slightly different picture than how I would have described these things because he's calling it alchemizing energy or whatever. I've called it that. I relate it more to translating things because I get really into the definition. Because, for example, going back to stage one, disillusion, where it's breaking down. If your language is built around the breakdown and the image that comes down to things breaking down, are you viewing it as death or transition? Of loss of something or in making space of something. Both of those experiences, they're the same thing, but it's described differently. You're composting or being things are breaking. Do you know what I mean? Like it completely changes what it is. Chaos is something that I used to get really in on because it's very overstimulating and stressful when I can't see the patterns happening because I'm very big on patterns. In order to process my chaos, I had to start viewing it as unrecognized patterns. I just to get back to a pattern to make it fit my definition of how things operate. But truly, chaos can also, from a different perspective, be viewed as the pressure you're feeling as you're aware of what you're not yet aware of. Because your body, your intuition, it starts tapping into things that you've not yet experienced. And that's why intuition will lead you somewhere. But it kind of just depends on how you're looking at it and how you would describe it. It doesn't have to be unpredictable. It can just be exciting. Those the same thing. And the thing is when you talk to somebody who's looking at their own chaos and they describe it to you, you'll find places where you're going through the same thing, where they've been through things you've not gone through. And you'll see the way that you could help them so much. And I say this kind of broadly, but most of the people who are going to be interested in listening to this kind of content are those kinds of people. But it's so easy to get stuck on where you can help them, where you are right because you've already thought of things. But when you look at it like you're talking in different languages, you are right. The bridge is beautiful, beautiful, but it's also strong. And so when you can see where they're not seeing the beauty in the bridge, it's easy to focus and try to explain how beautiful that bridge is. But if you both sat down playing the same game of drawing the bridge and writing a poem and playing with the other person's perspective of it, you'll find where they're both true. And when they're both true, now in the future, when you read another poem in another language, it might just make sense because you understand the energy of a bridge that lives inside of the collective twice as much as you did before. If you get stuck on what is already defined, then it limits that. And the thing is no matter how people translate it, the alchemizing, transmuting, the cleansing energy, the raising your frequency, all of these things all come down to basically the same thing. And it's you expanding your awareness, letting go of what isn't for you anymore, finding things that were already there that you want, and kind of planting new life with that. But again, your definitions of all of that will cater very much to how you're experiencing things. Purification, for example, I almost hate that they call it that because I grew up in purity culture. So to me, purification seems like removing all things but what you perceive as white light. And that feels limiting to me because our souls, our expressions, we are much more than simply white light. That's just one way to look at it. But purification can also be like if you're cleaning your rice and you're purifying it of all the dirt and stuff that was around it. That is also purification. The thing is when we hear something, like a word, a spiritual concept, a suggestion from someone we care about, we hear it first in what we already understand. And so we can hear that advice from there. But if we can hear it from where we understand it and then also hear it from where they are understanding it, it actually creates this entirely new thing that neither of you would have gotten to without being able to be open to exploring that. And that's why I would have just absolutely died on that app. I would have loved it so much. And that's why I'm trying so hard to figure out how to build a community. But what's funny is I keep thinking, I just need a fucking app for it. Because I have a Discord, I put a couple things up. I'm going to start putting the link out for people and start building a community there. But I have a hard time getting it started because in my definitions of things, it's too small. I want something bigger. I want an app. But I don't really want to make an app, I don't think. My point of today is that when you're misunderstanding somebody, remember that we're all actually speaking an entirely different language. And if they're trying to be understood and they're trying to understand you, then there's some very beautiful things that can come out of it. And I guess that's all for today. Thank you very much.
I want to thank everyone for joining us. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Sarah, who's been watching us. And I really appreciate that. I appreciate everybody who listens to us and watches us live. And please join us every Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, across Facebook, across YouTube, or catch the recording later. But I want to say, first off, Lizzie had such a beautiful sermon. I mean, we never know what each other are going to talk about. And she just gave me, the gist. So I'm going to speak about language. And she took such a different interpretation of what I thought she was going to talk about. That was beautiful. We can all learn from each other. I want to thank everyone again. We will